Little choppy waves are beating furiously against the pier in the Nadi. The blue and white flags on the masts of the fishing boats flap in the gusting wind, and in the tavern, the napkins are dancing on the table above the remains of our lunch. Full and refreshed, we mount the motorcycle, ready for the next stage of our journey. I fail to press the Kickstarter all the way down, and it recoils with the force of a hammer, right into the arch of my foot. The pain is paralyzing, and it is at least 15 minutes before I can stand on my leg again. Yuta has to start the motorbike. From the tavern, 3 young men follow her efforts with wonder and interest, while my masculine pride aches. We drive away, speedily. The air is hot and full of fragrances: thyme, basil, oleander, and sun-scorched rocks. The journey goes through gorges and over low hills dotted with olive trees. A couple of hours later, we arrive in Sparta, at the foothills of the mighty Tagios Mountains. We visit the abandoned Middle Ages city of Mitras. We stroll through the sweltering lanes, I slowly and limping due to the pain in my foot. The wind whistles softly around the stones and shrubs. Actually, it whispers, and suddenly I know what it was like to live in this place in ancient times. Existence was governed by the inner life. Every man and woman possessed their share of demonic and divine powers. Feelings and emotions gave life depth. The inner, magical, and powerful dimension has been lost. Such are my thoughts when I am on holiday and when my head is not full of potted plants and appointments. I am a purchaser in a flower export company. A continuous flow of goods rolls in every day, from morning till evening, and I must inspect them all. I shuffle when I walk. Come on, don't drag your feet. Every time I walk through the hall, I get the same comment, many times a day. Up from my desk with my cup of coffee and phone, through the secretary's office and into the packaging department and into the hall to inspect the flowers. Many steps every day. No wonder I get tired. To and fro, indefinitely, like a pendulum. No matter how often it swings, it is equally long from finding rest. My feet have a hard time keeping up with the pace. The thoughts always come first, always scanning the horizon for possible causes of problems. Remember to remind the driver that he must be in Berlin before 6, otherwise the cyclamens are just past their best. Call the gardener and have him pick off the withered leaves. There's just enough time. Remember, remember, and remember. And most important of all, remember to forget yesterday's blunder. Trading flowers is hard work and not at all romantic. All the trucks are loaded and gone, and it's dark now, and time to go home. Home to rest and warmth, to what makes the whole thing worthwhile. I must hurry, so that I can rest my tired legs. I need to relax and calm down, to no longer use my energy on reaching the next corner as quickly as possible, attempting to curb the restlessness, accepting that the possibilities for a brilliant career has little by little passed me by, and that adventure and excitement no longer lay ahead. My life has been a constant wandering, always breaking camp and on the move, on to the next thing in search of happiness. It is very common after all. I've not only sought happiness in the outer world, my journey has also been a movement inwards. This division, where does it come from? All the time I must remind myself that selling flowers has a purpose. Meeting Yuta meant that work was no longer the most important part of my life. All of a sudden, she was there, as if sent from heaven, bright as a summer's day, trusting and loving, round cheeks under large bluish-gray eyes. All of a sudden, my life was new, in quite a different sense than I had thought was possible. My desire to find serenity could not find better nourishment. Living a simple life of work and happiness had both become possible and attractive. And yet, my restlessness starts to rear its head again. My life is not complete, and at times I feel despondent. Let them carry me away tomorrow, I tell Yuta. Still, more often, I say, I can't go on like this. I know that life has two sides, the physical, tangible world that I have gradually become familiar with, and then a hidden, and no less real, spiritual dimension. To acquire knowledge of these invisible, fundamental forces has been a necessity of my life, but my attempts at drawing this higher world into my consciousness has not really been fruitful. I'm walking on two legs, so to speak, a material one and a spiritual one. Maybe my legs are a bit out of rhythm. Maybe I'm not just shuffling my feet. Maybe I'm limping in other less conspicuous ways. I must use both legs to find balance. The company's Christmas party is an event that makes the snaps taste good. I like snaps, served chilled and in the right circumstances, and so I drink ample this evening, celebrating the arrival of Christmas in the company of colleagues. Later, we go out in high spirits and squeeze into a basement restaurant. The party lasts until I begin to feel dizzy. The way to the exit is strangely long. I struggle along on stiff legs, and finally get out with relief into the clean, cold night air. It's a long way home. The flagstones of the pavement are uneven, and I stumble along the streets. Have I had too much to drink? But have I really had so much that I can't walk? Or, I suddenly remember the episode with the Kickstarter in Lenati. There went a few days before I could walk normally again. Is it the injury that is still bothering me? Just before Christmas, Yuta is off for a week's holiday in Gran Canaria. I'm looking forward to playing Bachelor again and going out with my old pals. The week on my own does not go according to plan. I am feverish and I don't feel well at all. Instead of fun and freedom, I spend 4 shivering days in bed, alternatively freezing and sweating while I cling to my duvet. My muscles quiver and vibrate. It has been a long time since I felt this bad. There is a lot of time for my thoughts to wander off. I fantasize about performing dangerous and miraculous feats and receiving well-deserved rewards and applause. The highest goal of man's aspirations is becoming a hero. But how? I've never known what I wanted to be. In the fog of my fever, I see my life as a perpetual restless journey.
Jump to that branch, and then be disillusioned on that branch, and then to look to the next branch.
A ceaseless search for happiness that I know exists.
Of the cosmic light.
I am looking for something precious that I once had and now miss so dearly. Chance seems to have ruled my life. Or is it something else? This is how my thoughts whirl around in my feverish brain. (1996) For the first time in years, I go to see a doctor. Now, I want to know what's going on with these legs of mine. Hopefully it's treatable, so that they will behave properly again. I tell him about the stiffness and the muscular vibrations. He is meticulous and questions me about my health and habits. Exercise? No. I never felt the need for that. Smoking? Well, my pipe is always in the corner of my mouth. Smoking feels good when you drink so much coffee. Alcohol? Not a lot, rarely more than 1 bottle of wine at a time. The doctor nods and smiles. Of course he understands how it is. He's about my age. He knows what it means to be a young man of 25 in the body of a 44-year-old. He strikes my knees with a rubber hammer and tickles my feet with a cotton swab. My feet and arms twitch in all directions. It is reassuring to be taken seriously. He doesn't know what it is, but it's probably a good idea to have a neurologist look at me. The doctor mentions his observations and writes them down on a sheet of notepaper. Hyperreflexibility, extended reflex zones, and fasciculations? Fascicular what? I'm sitting in the neurologist's waiting room. My limp is very obvious, and it's not very funny when people ask about my funny walk. It's good that I have finally come in contact with a medical expert who can refer me for treatment. A man comes out of the doctor's office, obviously a patient. As he's putting on his coat, he addresses the doctor. Well, in the end it is the good Lord who has the final say.
You've now come to a very important point in your karmic structure for this life.
Then it was my turn. The neurologist is an elderly, distinguished-looking gentleman. He seems a little absent-minded. He looks at the referral and asks me to take off my shirt. He quickly glances at my shoulders. Do you sometimes feel like an old boy, he asks. Well, now and then I feel tired. The days can seem very long. He tests my reflexes and confirms my own doctor's observations. The examination seems to be finished as he clears his throat and begins to speak. I don't catch the words exactly. They sound so strange. Anomaly in the nerve pathways, nothing to do with cancer. Unfortunately, there is no treatment right now. He cannot say more. More examinations are needed before I can be sure of anything. How is your family situation, he asks. I explain that I live with Yuta, who is a nurse. He says that she is welcome to come by his office. His words push me into a world I have never known, a world where all movements are slow and languid. My heart beats quite distinctly, but it is as if the blood does not circulate. This is serious, unimaginable. This is something else and more comprehensive than simply stiff legs. Yuta immediately recognizes the fear on my face. I cannot explain what's wrong. All I know is that the neurologist knows what's wrong with me, but he won't tell me. I have difficulty repeating exactly what was said only a half hour ago. I can remember the bits that reverberate in my head like an echo. Incurable. Anomaly. Serious. We look in a little neurology textbook. It is full of descriptions of terrifying diseases. I slowly begin to understand what neurology is all about. My ignorance saved me from a great deal of worry these past few months. Had I known about neurological diseases, I would never have approached a neurologist with such confidence. A few days later, Yuta visits the neurologist's office. He is sitting, looking out of the tall windows. I have had the pleasure of meeting your husband. What do you think it really is? Yuta explains about the little textbook. Well, what do you believe then? The neurologist insists. In despair, Yuta says that the symptoms could be consistent with those of ALS. Yes, they do, unfortunately. The neurologist also thinks that it is ALS and looks attentively at Yuta. Then he explains about amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and what we can expect. Yuta has one burning question. Does the disease affect one's mental faculties? Here, the neurologist is able to reassure her that neither reason, emotions, nor the senses will be affected. Yuta has a shift right after the meeting. Her world has just fallen apart, but her patients on the cardiac floor can't take care of themselves. Later, she will have to explain the diagnosis to me and take into account that she has a seriously ill husband who she is going to lose within a few years. I am waiting in the car as Yuta comes out, crying. She seats herself in the car and hugs me. I understand nothing. I have still not understood the implications of the neurologist's interest in my closest relative. There, in the car, in the dark hospital parking lot, Yuta has the difficult task of telling me that I am suffering from ALS and that in a short time I will be paralyzed. Yuta explains more about the disease and what the neurologist has said. I hear the words, but the meaning does not sink in. I am very calm and drive through the town without difficulty. So this is it, I think. When we come home, we try to understand our misery. We find the book on neurological diseases again and read the few lines about ALS over and over again. It cannot be true. Such an ugly disease. We had never imagined that this could happen to us. Our life together had just started. We cannot part like this. There must be a mistake. I set a bottle of whiskey on the table. I try to soothe this looming pain that threatens to tumble down on me. Glass after glass burns in my throat, and gradually I slip into a state where the recent events become unreal. I wake up early, filled with terror. Our life has been permanently altered. We now know the shape of my future and what the final result of the disease will be. My life is rapidly approaching its end, and we must part ways. We both believe in the continuation of life after death. We also know that the seeming separation is only an illusion. In the world of the soul, there are no barriers, but right now, that does not offer much comfort. We are firmly anchored in the physical world and are unaware of the other, and so the nameless nightmare continues into full daylight. But I also have a life that must be lived. Going back to work after a couple days sick leave dispels my gloomy mood. My colleagues have been following my health condition closely and now must be informed. I asked the union representative to read aloud a statement which explains the situation in a few words. The warmth and sympathy that I receive makes me feel that I am back amongst the living again. There are things that must be done, even though my world has just collapsed. Only periodically does it seem strange, if it really matters, whether a gardener gets 2 cents more or less for a plant. My disease has practical consequences. Time is running short and existence becomes precious. Choices and priorities must be made. What do I want most dearly? Slowly, but with overwhelming delight, I realize that I am forced to receive the exquisite gift of unlimited freedom, not unlimited time, but the freedom to use my time exactly as I please. I can make the pilgrimage to China or Tibet to look for my roots, and the book that I've always dreamt about, I can now write, my memoirs. No one else can make decisions about my time anymore. In the middle of the hopelessness, there is suddenly a lot that must be done. I can and must organize my life. From one day to the next, I left the flower business with a clean cut. It is easy for me to put work behind me. With delight, I feel that I am on my way to becoming my own master. The feeling of independence gives me a mighty self-confidence, an incitement to be who I really am, even more. My newly won freedom is a paradox and a stark contrast to the reality of my future helplessness. Maybe this is why I feel the change so intensely. I don't believe in chance. Not for a moment do I doubt that the disease has a meaning and a message. There is a lesson to be learned. When it has been learned, the disease has fulfilled its purpose and can leave my body. Here lies the possibility of recovery. My life is a jigsaw puzzle that will come together sooner or later. No matter how tragic or meaningless our situation seems, it is a necessary part of the drama of our life. The situation has been created by past action. Understanding and knowledge is the way to change. Therefore, I must find the key so that I can open the gate to the land of memory. I calculate the sum of my life, active, passive, net capital. How should the resources be used? We also get more tangible help with the planning of our lives. The A.L.S. consultant comes to visit us at home. It is a great help to talk to a person who knows about A.L.S. in such detail and who knows what aids may be needed, and not the least, when the need may arise. I am all nerves. The day has come. We are to attend a meeting for the Patients Association and confront people whose A.L.S. has progressed further than mine. It is actually the first time I am meeting folk with a disability, and it frightens me. The meeting with my fellow A.L.S. sufferers turns out to be a good and positive experience, and the fellowship that I feared is actually welcomed. 1997. I am at my quarterly checkup at the hospital. During the meetings with the specialist, he strives to make sure that I have the help and the conditions that I have need for. The specialist looks intensely at me. He is clearly distressed. We sometimes ask ourselves if we are doing good enough, he said. He is frustrated because there is no treatment that he can offer. In the previous meeting, we talked about a ventilator. I had shared that I was considering life-saving interventions. The doctor asked about the status of those speculations. I tell him about the book that I am writing, and add that he needs to keep me alive until it comes out. I want to experience being called an author, even if it's only for one day. The discussion shifts to an unpleasant topic. A long time ago, I said that I wanted a gastric feeding tube when it would serve a purpose, and now the time has come. The discomfort does not come from the thing itself, which is a little tube that goes into the stomach, but the operation that makes me nervous. The symbolism is not auspicious either. I am getting worse, even though I think I'm doing quite well. Is this operation really needed right now? Now is the best time to do it, before I get worse. So, it will not be long now. The doctor is unusually caring today. What about talking to a psychologist, he asks. I am in a humorous mood today and reply that if he thinks the psychologist will benefit from it, then I am at his disposal, no problem. But otherwise, no thanks. I have my own spiritual advisor. For half of my life, I have consulted a clairvoyant woman. Let us call her Evelyn. When I met her for the first time, it was as if I had finally found someone that truly understands me. Evelyn and I have been in the same worlds. An experience that clearly comes to my mind is of a temple, maybe a pyramid. Kind spirits surround us and caringly direct us to an altar. A life-giving light fills us. Gradually, a figure appears. Without words, we understand that it is the Master. Happiness comes from another plane. We carry the happiness with us for weeks, even though it slowly dissipates.
Going back, we knew each other back in time when you were a student in my father's learning place. He taught philosophy in China. And within that, he also taught music, art, all these things came together. You were one of his most promising pupils.
1998. One's voice speaks the soul's language. With my voice, I can whisper sweet words to my beautiful wife. I can pray for peace in the world. I can cheer and sing. I can cry and show anger. Therefore, I am saddened when I listen to myself. I used to speak so well before A.L.S.
For what? For Chinese.
Even though I cannot speak, I can communicate. I've just received a brand new computer that I can control with my eyes. I can write what I will and to whom I want to, completely independent of someone else. 1999. My doctor succeeds at keeping me alive so that I can call myself an author. I called the book, Is Heaven a Better Place? A kind of message, but regardless a book. The purpose with the book was to set some experiences on paper, and it succeeded. The book was published and distributed. Ergo, I am an author. (2000) The sunlight streams into the living room where I sit quietly. I am filled with joy that spring has arrived. I'm alive. Even though I have a death sentence hanging over my head, I am not finished with creating. I have so much to be happy for. You to smile. A bucket of tulips, that a good friend has given us, the birds on the feeder, just to be here. If I choose a ventilator, I could cheat death and live for an unknown period of time. The decision to have a ventilator has been long underway. I received my ventilator in August 2000. It has given me security, comfort, and a healthier color. It is surely wonderful in heaven, but the Lord must wait a little longer. (2001) Without my life's love, Yuta, I would not be here. Yuta gave me an unconditional yes, also when A.L.S. came into our lives. She has never wavered, not even for a second. Our love is based in common values and beliefs, and the same taste in humor. She is my rock, and I am so grateful fate brought her into my life. Yuta is an incredible human being, and I love her unendingly. (2002) 1963 was a landmark year. 4 young men from Liverpool started a musical revolution. I listened to Radio Luxembourg late into the night while I neglected my homework. In retrospect, maybe I should have done a little more of my homework. The world of music is so refreshing. With the music followed parties, booze, and girls. I could make an entire film about it if I only had the time. Together with a British pop group, began a journey that isn't over yet. Through the years, I have been to many different kinds of concerts. They can also take place in front of a TV or a computer.
Sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're wrong, sometimes we cry.
2003. There are many things that I can't do. I can't ski, ride a roller coaster, or eat a hot dog. But what I can't do, I never think about. What good would come from it? I would rather do what I can. I can dream and contemplate. I can dream myself far away from here. I am in Greece with Yuta, without helpers. We snorkel in the clear water and enjoy its weightlessness. We drink cold Ratsina with lovely tzatziki and souvlaki. Later, we saunter home to our hotel where we melt together in the heat of the night. Or I travel back in time to Ladakh in northern India, where we visited the same year I received the diagnosis. Since childhood, I have been drawn to Tibet, the distant and mystical kingdom hidden in the clouds. Before I sit down in a wheelchair, I will experience the wonders of Tibet. Ladakh is exquisitely beautiful, with untouched nature and traditional Tibetan houses. We visited a temple where monks sat in their orange robes and played long horns. There was a deep peace over the temple. After hundreds of years, the prayers have penetrated into the massive stone walls. The desire came over me to stay there until the end of time. As we were leaving, I caught the eye of a young boy. It could have been me in another lifetime, which only strengthened the desire to stay. But no. There are too many stairs, and I would soon need to acquire a wheelchair. It is so beautiful in Ladakh, but a wheelchair would be quite a limitation. I enjoy watching nature on TV, from the high mountains to the coral reefs. I live with the lions and the elephants without risking my life. I cry with the polar bears as the ice disappears, and the tigers as its time is running out. I sail the Pacific Ocean with Trolls Clovedale. We set anchor off the coast of Tahiti and Fiji. We receive flowers around our necks from the hula dancers. It is not on board the Norknapper I sail, but with Clovedale's audiobooks. 2004. When I surf the web, I visit websites and Facebook groups that discuss ALS. I am so happy that I have a Danish passport. There are others in my situation who lay in bed all day because they don't have the help to get up. Even in rich countries like America, it is so tragic. In my book, Is Heaven a Better Place?, I wrote that some words have a new meaning for me. Solidarity is one of them. I am so thankful that Danes in general believe that the sick and the weak should receive the help that they have need for. And not just that. Danes are willing to do without a large portion of their income to provide this help. It hasn't always been this way. It has been the hard and focused work of a few kind idealists that have made it possible, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart. They have made caring and altruism a part of the Danish way of life. It maybe sounds like something that you might hear on the 1st of May, but I believe that most Danes would agree with me. In Denmark, politicians have created an ideal situation for Danes with ALS. It has happened in close cooperation with the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation and the Rehabilitation Center for Muscular Dystrophy. The MFS and RCFM have been under the innovative and creative direction of Evil Crow for many years. Evil Crow is a human with many facets. He is an artist, an inspiration, and a businessman. Evil has made it possible that a person with a respirator can have a normal life. If it was not for him, I would not be alive today. The so-called fight against the system was over before it could begin. Yuda and I have never had any problems navigating the system. We have only good things to say about it. 2005. I have always been religious. Not that I believe that there's an old man with a white beard that is making all the decisions, but I believe that there are eternal laws that govern existence. I believe there is meaning in everything, and that everything will work out in the end. This quote by Gandhi covers with high precision my perception of religion.
I do dimly perceive that whilst everything around me is ever changing, ever dying, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, and recreates. That informing power or spirit is God. In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists.
2006. The thought that we live more than once is appealing. To think I could be young again and experience women again.
But this life is very important to not run away.
In my next life, I will use my gifts more wisely. Karma and reincarnation are inseparably connected. Good or bad karma, in reality, is irrelevant in the bigger picture. Karma is always involved in a disease like ALS, but it is not a punishment, and beauty and wealth are not a reward, just a stage of evolution. 2007. My helpers are my arms, legs, and voice. I am helpless without them. We spend day and night together, so it is important that we jive together. Otherwise, it can be unpleasantly awkward. Therefore, we are very careful when we choose a new helper. Yuda is naturally also a part of the interviews and decision-making process. Most importantly, my helpers give me independence, and thus give me worth. I know what I want. I am definitely severely disabled, but my life is not paralyzed. I keep my mind active. I always have one or two things on the go. It also keeps the helpers on their toes. 2008. Now that the stress of the flower industry is long behind me, I can enjoy flowers in a totally new way. Fortunately, there are many plant schools around me that still remember me and let me visit them in the middle of their busy day. It fills me with gratitude. It also isn't half bad that I receive some complimentary plants and flowers. 2009. It is rare that I am met with prejudice against my disability. I have gotten used to that people talk louder to me. If you can't speak, then you can't hear either. Once in a while, Yuda and I give talks at different educational institutions. And one time during one of our talks, a young man asked if I felt that I was handicapped or a human being. We were so blown away by the nature of the question that we didn't ask him to clarify. First of all, handicapped is not a designation, and secondly, I am clearly a human being with a disability. From the outside, things don't look so good. I can't speak or eat. I receive my nutrition through a gastric tube, but make no mistake, on the inside I am full of life, and I have an important mission. I teach people to appreciate what they have and the freedom that they take for granted. When I go around in my wheelchair, people probably think, thank God that isn't me. And in that way, they realize how incredibly lucky they are. Maybe they develop a deeper sense of compassion. And all of this learning and realization is a part of a lifelong process. You reap what you sow. Or as my father always said, smile at the world and the world will smile back. (2010) Every so often, one of my fellow A.L.S. sufferers pops up in the media and demands that doctor-assisted suicide should be an option. In Denmark, you can receive assistance and can live out the end of your life without pain. Folk are usually nervous or afraid that life will end without value, and life never ends without value. Among the politicians, members of the ethics board, and doctors, there is a majority who are against doctor-assisted suicide. Doctor-assisted suicide is not a treatment, therefore it should not be a part of a doctor's scope. A doctor's purpose is to provide the best care possible so that the patient can continue living as best as possible. It is absurd to say that to have a good life, that one should die. Yuda and I believe that life is holy without making it sound too religious. Doctors should protect life regardless of the situation, and they have the tools and skills to do so already. A friend of mine sent me a poem by Robert Frost. The woods are lovely, dark and green, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. No one knows what tomorrow will bring, but I would rather live until death comes for me. 2011. With the right to have a ventilator comes the right to turn it off. Through the years, some of my fellow A.L.S. sufferers have taken that road. It requires that you set a date on your death. I can't even imagine why I would do that. I've never had it better. I am way too curious to say goodbye to the world. There's so much that I want to do and experience with friends and family. I want to grow old. And goddammit, I want to know if we're alone in the universe. 2012. Even though I'm a vegetable, I can still make new friends. Our neighbors came by one day. They're in their mid-80s, and for fun I said that I would test them to see if they were brain dead. Ruth and Carl Eric are definitely not brain dead, and we have had many lovely moments together. One of my new friends, YEARS, he's an engineer from Latvia and is writing his PhD in Denmark. He gave me the unusual experience of flying a drone with my mind. (2013) A number of years ago, I was corresponding with a daughter of an A.L.S. patient. She wrote, I experienced that many at my father's funeral and after said that it was best that he was at peace. But no, it is definitely not better. It made me furious that they said that. The best for me and my family would be that he was never sick and that he was still with us. But the next best thing would be that he was still with us, even if he was sick. Even though he was sick, he could give us advice, help, and love. And that meant so much for us. He was my father. So people should shut up and not judge a person's worth based on their situation. I will let her words speak for themselves. 2014. My computer is my window to the world. With my eyes, I have written a book, articles, and countless emails. I write instructions to my helpers, and so much more. Most importantly, my computer has given me alone time with my thoughts and the ability to send Yuta private messages. I'm an avid Facebook user. I actually think that Mark Zuckerberg deserves a medal. He has created an international free space in cyberspace where ownership has been abolished. It is a free platform for anyone that has access to the internet, and more importantly, it creates a sense of community and can contribute to a more peaceful world. 2015. All year, I've been a little bit sick. Nothing alarming, just a little off. At a point I had a fever, so I went to the doctor's. She measured my blood sugar and took some other tests. When she saw my blood sugar, she sent me directly to the hospital. It wasn't life-threatening, but everything pointed to diabetes. It is very rare that such a diagnosis was so warmly welcomed. I was just so thankful that it wasn't cancer or another serious disease. I'm not a fan of hospitals. Actually, it is the first time in 15 years that I've been admitted. Having diabetes is easy peasy for me. Unfortunately, I can't work out, and I already have a strict diet. My helpers take care of the rest. 2016. It has been many years since I have been able to use my eye-controlled computer. My eyes are simply too poor to control the computer. Luckily, I have a letterboard, and this is how it works.
Alfabetet er delt op i 5 grupper, nummereret fra 1 til 5. Vi staver til navnet Biver. Første A, B. Første, anden, G, H, I. Første, anden, tredje, M, N, O, P, Q, R. Første, anden, G. Første, A, B, C, D, E. Og til sidst, første, anden, tredje, M, N, O, P, Q, R.
It sure is slow, but it works. In an attempt to prevent the unbearable condition of being locked in, I was working with researchers from the Danish Technology University, and some kind folk crowdfunded 25,000 kroner for me. Unfortunately, it would take a lot more money to develop a spelling program based on brainwave interpretation. 2017. As long as I can pay the electrical bill for my ventilator, I will hang around. I'm very excited for what the future will bring, and I hope I reach at least 100. It's also necessary because I promised Yuta when we got married that I would take care of her when she got old. 2018. Having a disability is a hard lesson, and it requires patience and humor. Mainly, it makes everything so bloody difficult. A.L.S. can result in suffering and a sense of deprivation. It can also be a source of knowledge about the fundamental conditions necessary for a human being. A few years ago, I made a list of things that I would do if I was miraculously healed. Give my wife Yuta the biggest hug in the history of the world. I will leave Jakob Fuglsang in the dust in the Pyrenees. Eat fish by the harbor in Skane with a single glass of schnapps and enjoy the sweet waft of the sea. Fill my mouth with chocolate. Shave in the time that it takes my helpers to put on the shaving cream. At the same time, it is a list of the things that I have lost and inwardly miss, but I have retained the most important things I can feel, think, and sense, and that is what gives me life. When someone has plenty of time like me to observe, it brings the details clearly into light, and I have learned to see the beauty and worth in the smaller things. I can't see the universe in a grain of sand yet, but maybe one day.